Hey, what's up guys? Radku here, back with another Yu-Gi-Oh video. And sorry I didn't post earlier. There's some stuff came up and I had a deck ready for today, but it was Virtual World. And the problem with Virtual World is that they haven't released it properly on Dueling Book because it's only the OCG versions and they haven't released it on TCG yet. So the thing is that the names were super different, and I realized that it wouldn't work because people wouldn't be able to make the deck. So maybe I'll do that later when the actual names come up. But today we're doing Genex. So I was back on the forum, and I'm like, yo, hit me with the worst archetype that was ever made. And they said Genex. Like, I got 10 people that said Genex is the worst deck they've ever seen. And the thing is that, I think it is kind of usable. Like, it's not good, but it's usable. So, the thing about this deck is that there are three different archetypes inside this archetype. There are the Genex allies, there's the Genex cards, and then there are the R Genex cards. Now, none of them are good, but, like, and most of them revolve around this little card here, Genex Controller. But the thing is that they have a lot of cards that can copy their name. And Genex Controller isn't really needed anymore for this deck to be actually usable. So I kind of put it in as a one-of tech option, but I'll explain it later. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. Starting things off, 3 copies of Genex Neutron. Once per turn during the end phase, if this card was normal summoned, you can add 1 machine type tuner monster from your deck to your hand. This is an easy search of your recycler, your chemister, or even your birdman. This can just easily set up some plays. Most of my decks are based off of like previous deck profiles, but usually they're older ones so that I can build on it myself. But the thing is that the latest deck that this one was profiled in, I found from 3 years ago, which the meta has changed so much in the past 3 years that I needed to change so much about this deck, but some of the cards still stand. So yeah, I play 3 copies of this. Not good, but not bad either. One of your starter cards. Then I play 3 copies of our Genex Turbo. When this card is normal summoned, you can add 1 level 1 Genex monster from your deck to your hand. So this one is actually a lot better because it can search your recycled. This one can only search. This one can search all your tuners, but it can only search it at the end phase. And this one is as soon as it's summoned. And a lot of the Genex cards have normal summon effects, so I did play a fancy tech that I'll talk about later. Then I play 3 copies of Genex Blast Fan. This is probably one of the best Genex cards. When this card is special summon, you can add 1 Genex card from your deck to your hand. So this is just a generic search card like these 3, or these 2, but the thing about this is that it's when it's special summoned, while the other ones are when it's normal summoned. Now, there aren't a ton of special summon effects, but I did have a few cards in the deck and extra deck that could special summon from the graveyard, so even after you use this for plays, it's gonna have some capabilities afterwards. Then I play 3 copies of Genex Ally Duradark. Once per turn during your main phase, you can select 1 face-up attack position monster your opponent controls with the same attribute as this card, destroy it. And since, of course, dark monsters are the most generic type of monster, you can pretty easily use that. I was actually debating whether to play a fusion engine in this deck, because there are super poly engines that I could use if I was playing this as a Genex Cyber Dragon build, or I could try it as a Genex Shadal build because of how many different types they have in this deck. The only type that they don't have is Divine, I'm pretty sure. And this deck has heaps of support, so I could have used a fusion thing, but I kind of liked it just as this. So decent effect, good pop. Then for the tuner monsters, we actually play almost as much tuner monsters as we do others. One Genex ally, Birdman, probably the best tuner in the deck, just because of how easy it is to use. You can return one face-up monster you control to the hand, special summon this card from your hand, and then banish it when it leaves the field. Also, it gains 500 attack if the return monster was wind. So we do have a few return monsters to return for wind, but that's not really the point. The whole point is to get a decent monster out on the field. One copy of that is because it's limited. You know, I'm not exactly sure why I was limited. If you know, tell me down in the comments. Then I played 2 copies of Genex Ally Chemister. I actually like this card. It can change attributes, which means that you can change up your synchro plays. The extra deck, I really only based it. I did not base it around this card changing their attribute, but I based it off of what I already have in the main deck and how consistent I can be with summoning out my monsters. So this can actually help your plays, even if you haven't actually summoned yet. You can change up your monster's level that's on the field and pretty easily go into some plays. Then I play 3 copies of Genex Recycled. Once per turn, you can select one Genex monster in your graveyard. Until the end phase, this card's name is treated as that selected monster's name. Pretty easy to send a controller to the grave in this deck, and with some decent stuff happening if you use Genex controller to summon some synchro monsters, because some of them actually do require Genex controller. Being able to change your name, the name of the card, is really good in this deck. 1 copy of Genex controller, because you wanna play this as a 1-of so that you can copy it with recycled, but it's only a 1-of because you want to make this deck as consistent as possible despite how much of a gimmick it is. 2 copies of Summoner Monk. Summoner Monk is okay in this deck. You have a ton of monsters, and the Genex archetype is one of the only archetypes I've ever seen that doesn't have any monster or any spells whatsoever, other than I think Super Heavy Samurai doesn't have any spells either, or they have a spell that banishes. I'm not sure, but like this deck has 0 spells, so I had to put in a bunch of spell options that I could use with Summoner Monk, but there were a lot of generic machine options that I could use to help with those plays. So Summoner Monk is decent, not exactly the best card in this deck, but it can work. 3 copies of Ash, because disruption in this deck is very important, because this is a slower deck, so being able to stall out your opponent is really good. 2 copies of Ghost Ogre. It's just really good. I don't know why people stopped playing this card. It's still really, really good. 1 copy of 1-for-1. You can summon out your recycled from the deck. That's really the only target, but being able to summon out a tuner from the deck is actually really, really good in this deck, and it's kind of important in any of your plays. Then I play 1 Foolish Burial to send your controller to the grave, because the only reason you play controller is so that recycled can copy its effect. So having 1-for-1 is kind of important. Foolish Burial is kind of important. 1 copy of Called by the Grave, because this deck can search a lot, so if you get Ash, you're kind of dead. Either way, you're still dead, but Called by the Grave is a good option to have. 2 copies of Iron Draw. Really the max you're going to get out is 2 monsters. So you're going to have 2 monsters on the field, and then you're going to go into your synchro play afterwards, so that 1 summon restriction is fine. Then I play 3 copies of Double Summon. This card is really, really good, because it has 0 downside, and you can normal summon again and gain those sweet search effects, which is really good considering that none of your cards are hard ones per turn. Literally none of them. And I think that's why Birdman is limited, just because you can spam it multiple times just to add it back to your hand to summon it and then get rid of cards, which is really good. But double summon is a good option for this deck, because of your normal summon effects. 3 copies of Machine Dupe. Only 2 cards that you can actually use dupe on is Genex Chemister and Genex Recycled, but that's actually really good because you have your synchro monsters, and usually there's 2 synchro monsters per type, but having the ability to summon out multiple tuners so that you can go into synchro plays and then go into more synchro plays is actually really, really good. Then I play a decent card actually. 3 copies of Urgent Schedule. If your opponent controls more monsters than you do, special summon 1 level 4 or lower and 1 level 4 or lower and 1 level 5 or higher Earth Machine monster from your deck in defense position but negate their effects. And I am dumb. Then you cannot declare an attack. Then if this set card in the is sent from the field to the graveyard, you can add. I'm an idiot. I forgot to add a level 5 or higher. Just literally add a generic one. Add something that gains an effect off of normal summons, because you have double summon. But yeah, add something so that you can use this effect. Because being able to utilize that is really good. And then you have the ability to go into synchro plays. I can't believe I forgot to do that, but we'll take care of it later. Just cut out 1 copy of this, or even cut out like an 1 copy of the Iron Draw, just so that you can put in any level 5. So that would mean you would have 2 bricks in the deck, that level 5 or higher monster, and your Genex controller. But that's fine. 2 bricks deck can handle. That is it for the main deck. Other than that 1 mistake with the Urgent Schedule, this is a pretty solid main deck. Genex is not very combo centric, but it can do combos. There are a few setups that you can do with Machine Dupe and Double Summon, but it's really, really heavily required to use these. So that is it for the main deck. Moving into the extra deck, 2 copies of Genex Ally Axel. I actually really like this card. It's super generic, just needing 1 Genex tuner and 1 non-tuner. Once per turn, you can discard 1 card to select a level 4 or lower machine monster in your graveyard, and special summon it. The attack of it is doubled, but it cannot declare a direct attack. Really good. This was what I was talking about when I was referring to the special summon from the grave in terms of Blast Fan. So, pretty good effect. Then I played 2 copies of Genex Ally Tri-Arm. Man, why can't I pronounce that? It needs Genex controller, but really the main play you do with this is you can use this and you can do plays, or you could use this to go into plays. I kind of just have it in here. You could debate running a Pot of, like 2 copies of Pot of Extravagance, but you kind of need your extra deck. Not exactly the best card. I don't even think you can summon it in this deck, but who cares? Spot holders, yeah. Then I play 2 copies of Locomotion R Genex, 1 Genex tuner, and 1 or more non-tuner dark monsters. So this deck is mostly dark. You have non-tuner dark monsters that you can easily search out with your non-darks. You have double summon to get them out, and since it doesn't need a Genex monster to be dark for its non-tuner materials, you can use Summoner Monk. When this card is synchro summon, take control of 1 of the face-up monster your opponent controls with the highest level. So this can actually help you, because a lot of decks play super high level monsters, so you can use those to go into plays with like your Tri-Arm if they only have a level 4 monster, and that's actually really good. You can utilize that pretty easily. 2 copies of Vindicate are Genex. Needs a Genex tuner and a Wind monster for non-tuners. So this is actually really easy to use, considering that you have 2 searchable non-tuner Wind monsters. Your opponent cannot select this card for an attack, so you can attack lock your opponent, despite the fact that the main way of getting rid of stuff is by card effects. But if this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle, you can add one Genex monster from your deck to your hand. Again, deck is very monster reliant, so being able to search is really good. One copy of Windmill Genex, one Genex controller, and one or more non-tuner wind monsters. Again, super easy to summon. This card gains 300 attack for each face-down spell card on the field. Then send one card from your hand to the graveyard to select and destroy one face-down spell or trap card. So, not a once per turn. Can spam this, destroy your opponent's entire thing. Pretty easy to use. You can have recycled gain the effect, but really you would mainly just want to use controller for this. But it's not a bad card. You could run more of it, but I liked it just as a solid one of, just because the fact that you're not going to use your actual Genex controller and you can't really summon it with recycled very well. So having this option is good if you accidentally draw into your controller. But yeah, one copy of Genex Ally Triforce, upgraded version of Jimmy over here. Really, you actually can't. You can, never mind. So its effect is based off of the attribute of the non-tuner synchro monsters you use. If it's Earth, this card can attack your, or your. If this card attacks your opponent, cannot activate spells or traps during until the end of the damage step. Fire, if this card destroys a monster by battle and inflicts damage to your opponent equal to the destroyed monster's attack. Or light. Once per turn, you can select one light monster in your graveyard and special summon it in defense position. So, yeah. If you haven't realized yet, you can only use the light effect because you only have Genex Neutron in this deck. So, I mean, it's still, the light effect is probably the best effect next to maybe fire, but I really think that the light effect is the best. Plus, you don't want to run a bunch of bad cards just to summon another bad synchro monster. So, yeah. Then I play two copies of Beelzeus, the Diabolic Dragon. This has some of the best protection in the game, on top of just being pretty good. All your monsters are dark. Plus, with this, 3, 6, 9, 10. With it being a level 10 monster, you can actually summon it with a Genex Chemister, or, yeah, that's the only way. But, being able to summon that is actually really good. Plus, if worse comes to worse, use double summon, be able to get it out, have some decent plays from there. Then I play one copy of Nightmare Phoenix for just generic destruction, as well as Unicorn. And then I play one copy of Boral Sword for OTKs, because with Machine Dupe, you can use double summon to normal summon once, activate Machine Dupe, special summon, then you have double summon again to summon again. So that's a one card Boral Sword. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Please like, subscribe, share, comment, let me know what you thought, and let me know if there's anything you'd change about that. Remember, change out maybe one copy of this for just any level 5 or higher monster. It's good for link plays as well as good for synchro plays. And yeah, that's pretty much it, and I will see you in the next Yu-Gi-Oh video. Peace, guys.